And let's talk more about the significance of the upcoming trip to Cuba by U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry. We're joined now from Havana by Carlos Alzugaray. He is a Cuban diplomat and educator. And I just want to start with U.S. President Barack Obama. He said in the State of the Union address, if something doesn't work for 50 years, it's time to try something new. This is another indication of that something new. Talk to us about how we got here, the timeline, and then also, if you would, these obstacles still in the way. Michael Voss touching on what Cuba wants. We're hearing from U.S. lawmakers grumbling about things as well. Where do things stand?
Well, I think first this was long overdue. I mean, there have been movement from different sources in the United States and Cuba saying we have to change this. The interesting thing, I think, is that the people who want change can be divided in two great groups in the United States. The group that want change, just the tactic, but with the same purpose, which is regime change in Cuba, and the group that says, forget about regime change, let's just have a normal relationship with Cuba and benefit our interests, especially trade interests, etc. I think the administration is of two minds, and Kerry's trip emphasizes the second point. He has made it a point to coming to Cuba, being the one to raise the flag. This is a governmental thing. And this is important for Cuba because basically in the past, the United States ignored the Cuban government and tried to have contacts with the opposition. Now the opposition is going to take a back seat, and Kerry is going to be talking to Foreign Minister Bruno Rodriguez. The official ceremony of raising the flag is going to be attended only by government officials from Cuba. So I think we have that in mind. Now, the big issues that Michael mentioned, nobody has any illusions that these big issues are going to be dealt with immediately. I think what both governments, in a very pragmatic way, are doing is advancing in every aspect that is not a big issue, but in which they can establish links of cooperation so that if there is a change in the United States or in Cuba, these things cannot be reversed. But I think what the emphasis should be on the fact that, one, this is a governmental affair between the two governments, and this is important because the United States had a policy of non-recognition of the legitimacy of the Cuban government. And secondly, that Kerry, by coming here and saying, I want to raise the flag, it doesn't matter that I'm going to do it on July 20th, it was when both embassies started to operate and the Cuban foreign minister was in Washington. I don't care if it's not that day. I'm going to do it. So he's emphasizing that he wants his name associated not only with the Iran deal, but also with the Cuban normalization process. And I think this is President Obama and Secretary Kerry working in tandem to advance as much as possible. And I believe that the way that they are doing things, there is an obvious evolution from the speech that Obama gave in December. He said, we are reestablishing relations with the Cuban people. Now both sides are saying, both Kerry and Obama are saying, we are reestablishing relations with the Cuban government and the Cuban people. So the Cuban government feels that it's not taking the back seat anymore.
You know, it's interesting. A senior State Department official said that hopefully this will accelerate engagement with Cuba on issues like human rights and law enforcement. Obviously, that's the U.S. point of view. I'm sure from a Cuban standpoint, they want things accelerated in terms of the lifting of the embargo. How quickly can all of these things come together?
Well, I think the lifting of the embargo probably will take some time, but there is a factor that is a game changer, which is the travel ban. Because the forces that are demanding the lifting of the travel ban, which is part of the embargo, but it's not the whole embargo, the forces that are saying this are arguing, hey, this is not a question about Cuba. It's a question about the constitutional right of Americans to travel everywhere. Cuba is the only country where they cannot travel freely. So maybe that passes Congress. And if the travel ban is lifted and things start moving, for example, Arne Sorenson, the president of Marriott, who was here a couple of weeks ago, wrote an article saying we can expect 5 million American tourists coming to Cuba. That's double the amount of tourists that Cuba is receiving from all over the world. Now, if American tourists start to come to Cuba with the embargo on, the embargo is dead. The embargo, the days of the embargo are going to be finished. So this is some of the things that I see that might start happening. On the one hand, you have expansion of cooperation on those issues in which the interest of both governments is clearly fine. And then you have this issue of the lifting of the embargo. On the other hand, President Obama can still use his presidential powers to expand the limited licenses that are permitted even under the embargo. That can happen. If that happens, that also will give the forces who want the total lifting of the embargo momentum in what they are doing in Congress. I think it's going to be very interesting. I don't have big expectations, but these are the things that I see happening in the immediate future. Remember, you will have an election in the United States in 2016. The difference this time is that probably nobody wants to do what was the conventional wisdom before. The conventional wisdom before was, you want to win a presidential election, you have to win Florida. If you want to win Florida, you have to win the Cuban-American vote. If you want to win the Cuban-American vote, you need to take a hard line on Cuba. Obama proved that wrong.
Those days are over.
Bet the next
Carlos,
time
I apologize, but we've run out of time. But thank you so much. Great conversation.